Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Marketing in Times of Recovery. It's the Built Environment Marketing podcast hosted by me, Iowa Bass, from Abass Marketing. Abass Marketing is a marketing consultancy that works with engineers and architects to bridge the gap between their business strategy and what they do in terms of marketing on the ground. You can find out more about my work and what I get up to at www.abassmarketing.com. Anyone who knows me knows that I do love engineers and engineering in general. Actually, way more than I actually love architecture, the truth be known. So today's interview is a bit of an engineering marketing fest with Chris Moore, who leads the marketing and communications at Price & Myers. He's also part of the BuildUp Built Environment networking group that I'm on the committee on as well, so we also know each other from there. It's an awesome conversation, which I hope you're really going to enjoy. We look at the importance of brand and tone of voice, how to help a firm with over 40 years of history be cool and brave, and also we look at the challenge that engineers face in terms of, raising their profile and rising up in terms of communications and owning their share of voice in all the big issues that are facing the world at the moment. And of course, if you do like the show, don't forget that you can help us to spread the word by talking to people that you know about the show, saying what you like about it, sharing stuff on social media, or if you really, really want to support us, leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. Anyway, so let's go on and hear the conversation with Chris. Enjoy. Hi, Chris. Thanks so much for coming onto the show. Can you give me a brief intro to you and your role at Price & Myers?
I certainly can, Ao. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Chris Moore. I have a background in journalism, starting off in Australia, as you might be able to tell from my accent. I started out working for Rupert Murdoch a long time ago, covering court and sport and council reporting for local newspapers in Melbourne. And after leaving the world of local reporting, I commenced with a magazine publishing company that included a number of different titles that were available on the newsstands at the time. Some of them still are. I started off writing advertorial, sort of written copy that looks like editorial, but it's actually paid for. Not necessarily the most ethical of things to be doing, but, you've got to get a start somewhere, don't you?
I was going to say, but probably says like ad somewhere really small in the corner or promoted.
Yeah. Stuff that was made to look like written copy, like editorial, but was actually, you had to say nice things about the client and nice things about the product. So that's sort of how I got rolling. Yeah. And then I left the world of magazine publishing after I sort of I wrote some advertorial about things like taps and tables and furniture and windows and things like that. And I didn't really know anything about any of these things. So I started ringing up architects and sort of saying, what do you look for in a tap? What do you look for in a window? And
there's a lot, isn't there?
There's a lot.
Called a window. Is it called fenestration? That's
fenestration, the word. Absolutely right. I learned words like fenestration and clerestory and things like that.
Who?
Clerestory is like when the windows are right at the top of the wall that sort of run along the roof line on the top of a wall. That's called clerestory fenestration. So there you go.
I'm not even going to ask how you spell it, but I've never heard of that. But there you go. You've outdone me on the window knowledge.
There you go. You can Google that afterwards. So I talked to a lot of architects, in that part of my job, and then I sort of got to know a lot of them. And then I actually sort of swung over to start working in the editorial department on a number of different titles in Melbourne at Architecture Media. And, after working there for probably, 7 or 8 years or something like that, I would talk to a lot of architects and people would say, I would say to them, I know you need better photography, or you need an angle, or what's the, how are you going to pitch this? And, what's even things that we were talking about sustainability back in those days even. And, eventually I had one architect say, well, you tell me what to do all the time, but why don't you come and actually work for my practice and sort of do it for me? And that was sort of how I moved out of publishing and into communications on the sort of practice side with an architect firstly.
Yeah.
And then not too long after that, I transferred to London with my lovely wife, and I got a job working for Max Fordham, who the rather esteemed environmental engineers. Max passed away at the start of this year, unfortunately, but God bless him. He was not just a lovely man; he was an absolute genius. And so I worked for Max Fordham for a while, for about 7 years or so. They did a lot of work with Price and Myers, actually.
Yeah.
Max and Sam and Robert were all friends back in the day.
I was going to say there was a whole group of them, wasn't there? There was like AKT2, the AKT, the original AKT, wasn't there? There was like Conisbee, Baxter's, like there was a whole group of engineers from that era, wasn't it? All around the late 70s.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Robert and Sam actually, they started off working. They met at Arup Associates back in the sort of late 60s,
Yeah.
early 70s. Robert actually interviewed Sam to give him, to give Sam his job, and Sam got the job, obviously, at Arup. And then they became friends, started working together. They knew Max, Alan Baxter. When Sam and Robert were talking about going out on their own, they bumped into Alan Baxter in Charlotte Street in Fitzrovia, and
which is the home of engineering for a very long time, wasn't it?
Absolutely right. All down there in Denmark Street, what have you. And Alan sort of offered them a little bit of space in his studio, and said, "Well, you can work, sort of 4 days for me and 2 days for yourselves," and sort of, or something like that. So Sam will ring me up after this and say, "No, that's not right." But it was something like that anyway. And and so that's how Price and Myers got started.
That's fantastic.
And as I say, I was at Max Fordham for about 7 years. I spent a couple of years at Fletcher Priest Architects, and then I was approached to join on at Price and Myers, and here we are.
So you started your role in April 2020. Oh, every time I think of 2020, my whole kind of body goes, lockdown one, the scary one. So what's it like to start an engineering practice a month after we were in lockdown?
Oh, actually, funnily enough, I actually joined on the 18th of March, not April. So I had 1 day in the studio, which was a Thursday. And then Sadiq Khan says, don't catch the tube tomorrow, the Friday. And then by Monday, we were all working at home. So I had to get to know the practice and all my new colleagues over Zoom and Teams. It was challenging.
I was going to say, and what was your kind of priority then? What was the biggest kind of challenge you had at that point? What did you have to do? What was your scramble?
Well, the biggest challenge from a marketing point of view, in sort of joining a practice at that time was the compensating for the lack of human face-to-face contact, or at least the sporadic nature of it. Businesses like engineering, like architecture, even law and finance, essentially we're brand companies, and you don't go in and just buy something off the rack. You can't try it on for size, you can't take it for a test drive. So every project we undertake is bespoke. It's a one-off work. It's complex, requires investment of all different sorts. And the people we work with, our clients, architects, collaborators, they like working with us based on previous experience with us or our reputation, and sort of for all of the websites and the brochures and the social media and all those sorts of things. There's nothing better than the personal relationships. So that's both within the practice and without the practice outside. So when I joined on the 18th of March and then was quickly sort of sent home, it was kind of compensating for the lack of the face-to-face that wins the day. So the last 2 years is, I think there's still some reticence to get back in front of people, if I'm honest, from some quarters. But
I think there is. Yeah. I think there is. I think it has changed forever. I think it's going to get back, but I think it's going to be slightly different.
I think it is going to be slightly different, but at the end of the day, business is a contact sport, and and we do have to sort of force ourselves off the Zoom and into the room. We've got to get back to the face-to-face stuff where if we can.
Off the Zoom
and into the room. You can have that printed on a T-shirt, if you'd like to. I
might get you one for Christmas. Off the Zoom and into the room. There you go. Could be a brand though as well. It works pretty well. So I'm going to go to your kind of website. So one of the things you did in lockdown was actually redo your website. And how was that? And where did you start from?
Well, we didn't actually redo the entire website. The team that I mostly still have working with me at the moment, they sort of got it rolling and rolled out the visuals of the website and the sort of brand identity in that sense. But what we did, first of all, internally, was to really sort of try and figure out, you've got people that are all of a sudden spread to the four corners. They're all working from home, and the business gets a little bit loose in the stays. I'm sure we weren't the only ones to sort of go through that, but sort of people feeling a little bit isolated, a little bit cut off, and it gave the partners at Price and Myers the opportunity to sort of say, well, who are we? What do we believe in? What makes us different? And so that sort of started the internal conversation. And we had lots of conversations with town halls and surveys and things like that about, for want of a better expression, of vision and values kind of project. And so that ended up with us sort of trying to articulate exactly who we are and what does make us different. And we think in many ways it expresses our competitive advantage as well. But just that we're who we are as a group of people and what values we share. And so from that came a lot of the copy that ended up on the website. And, we sort of thought to ourselves, well, there's things that we're talking about ourselves to ourselves, but we're actually really proud of a lot of this. And we have no sort of reluctance to tell the world. So we added a page to the website, and everyone's free to sort of find out what Price and Myers is about.
And as I said just before, I did have a good look at your website earlier, and your About Us page is like, it's a masterclass in writing. So like, as a marketeer, I sort of look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, how have you managed to kind of, I guess it's normal language as well. It's how people talk. It's like, this is who we are. And, even including, the fact that, not everybody wanted to go through the whole consultation process to get the tone of voice right and things like that. And I think those are the challenges we all face as marketeers. And that's, people don't necessarily, I'm here to engineer. Why am I here to kind of participate in a values conversation? But actually, I guess I always see a tone of voice as being a strategic piece that actually can inform all of your business. And getting that story right will inform your engineers, how you communicate with your clients, how you collaborate with people, how you explain what your firm does, how you even convey your engineering. And I think people don't realize that.
I think that's absolutely true, AO. I think that people, particularly engineers, actually in my experience professionally, engineers, I think that architects have got an advantage because when they go through university, they do the crits and they spend a lot of time talking about their work and a lot of time explaining their work, to people who are sometimes not going to be very kind to them. They really have to sort of justify, in front of some stern lecturer or tutor, they have to sort of justify their work. And I think that engineers can go all the way through their education and not necessarily spend a lot of time talking about their work or talking about themselves. And they can be a little bit uncomfortable with even the notion of tone of voice. They, in my experience, a lot of engineers prefer a more sort of academic, informational way of writing and
factual.
Speaking.
It's right and it's wrong, which is
exactly it, right.
It's like an engineering.
That's it. The switch is on, the switch is off. Things are black and white. They're one or the other, and that's that. And so one of the things that I always try to encourage, whoever I work with, is to sort of, if you can arrive at that tone of voice where your audience, and they're reading something, as they usually are when you're talking about tone of voice, that they can actually hear that voice coming off the page or out of the website or whatever, from the quotes or whatever. It just resonates and it's more human and it's more conversational. And that was exactly one of the things that sort of came from this project that we did when I started, was really just about sort of saying, how do we want to sound? We want to we this is not how we talk. So why don't we write like we talk a little bit more, and so that's how that sort of came about. And I'm really quite pleased that you like it. That makes me very happy.
I do actually invite people on whose stuff I really like, and it's not a lie. So it's like when I really love this, it's like I really do love it. But also I think the interesting thing about engineers is that actually a lot of them are really down to earth. I find engineers more down to earth than architects, right? And if we could get the tone of voice right for engineers, I think it would unlock so much more for the industry, because I think there are, I know literally hundreds and hundreds of amazing engineers, and you just think, actually, if we get the tone of voice right and we start talking to people in the normal language, you could really clean up in a completely different way. And there's so many challenges that we can solve around around society.
That's
It's
true. And
amazing.
again, it comes back to engagement, right? And I think that, again, with architects, and don't get me wrong, some of my best friends are architects. But
Boo.
I've always said that if architects could get the jargon out of, architects
Yeah.
sometimes employ jargon to make themselves sound more exclusive. And again, I've worked at Fletcher Priest, I've worked at Hayball in Melbourne, I've worked with architects over the course of my life in publishing, and just like explain it to me like I'm a 9-year-old kind of thing. That strip it back to there's a movement, I can't remember what they call it now, basic English or understandable English or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just about give us clarity, and as communicators, of course, that's what you and I and people like us are always striving for. And I think engineering, as I say, the light has been under the bushel for a long time. They don't tend to write or speak emotionally about their work, and I really, really think they should. And I think now more than ever, because we're facing a moral, environmental challenge that's bordering on catastrophe, and
Yeah.
we actually really need to make sure that engineers are heard. It's utterly essential for our future.
Well, they're going to be solving a lot of the problems, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They're going to
Yep.
be the ones that will be doing that. So, yeah, definitely. I think, and you're right. I've done a lot of kind of net zero work for WSP, actually. And you're right. It's getting those stories and making them so that they kind of resonate with people. And that's got to be the key challenge. If you want to get net zero achieved, if you want to, all of these challenges are not going to happen otherwise. They're massive issues.
Yeah, so, and none of us can do it on our own. We need to engage with people, everyone from the Prime Minister to Joe Public, and everyone in between. Engineers can't solve this problem. Business can't solve this problem. The public can't solve this problem. We all need to get on board, and I think that sort of good storytelling is central to getting as many people on board as we can.
Fantastic. So at Price & Myers, how do you approach the marketing for the practice? What do you tend to do overall?
Well, I think in essence, even though I'm a trained journalist and that's my background, I am sort of a brand guy, really. Anyone who knows me can just listen to me crap on about brand forever. I've always considered brand to be the sort of oxygen for a business, particularly for professional services businesses like ours. And the sort of the foundations of my approach to marketing is all about storytelling, and it's exactly what we came back to then, just talking about tone of voice and engagement and getting the stories across, and using the brand to support all the other aspects of the business development. There's a guy called Michael Eisner, who I don't know if you know him, but he's an American businessman. He's the former CEO of Disney Corporation, and if you're a football fan, he's also the owner of Portsmouth FC at the moment.
Huge club.
Huge club. Well, a club down on their luck, but an important club. I hope there's not too many Portsmouth FC fans listening, but yes,
hundreds who listen to this show, obviously.
I'm sure it's very popular on the South Coast. But Michael Eisner said that brand was made up of 1,000 gestures, and that's an approach I subscribe to. That yes, brand is everything. Yes, it's the logo type, of course it is. It's the color scheme. It's our storytelling. It's the website. It's how you answer the phone. It's what reception looks like when your visitors come to your offices. How you appear in the media, what events you're associated with. And it's all those little things, all of those elements of brand that help establish the personal and face-to-face interactions that I was sort of talking about earlier on, that, that was the big challenge for me 2 years ago. So if I can help my team, and I can give them a brand that represents them, again, much of what we've been talking about today, that they can believe in, and that they can tell the stories, and they can get out and advocate for our business and advocate for our work and our colleagues and our clients and collaborators, then that sort of helps us stay a step ahead of the competition, I think. And then once you've sort of got those fundamental foundation stones in place, it's rinse, repeat, and record. It's keep track of what you're doing, keep doing the good stuff, learn from what doesn't work, learn from what does work, do less of the former, more of the latter, and that's my approach to marketing overall. That's what it centers on. Yeah.
So what is working at the moment?
Well, I think one of the things that we were really blessed with I was really blessed with when I began 2 years ago was that we just finished working with the University of Cambridge to develop the parametric and numeric design assessment tool. You may know it as PANDA.
Snazzy.
It's very snazzy. Yeah, we thought long and hard about that. I can't take any credit for the creation of that beautiful acronym, but the engineers did sort of say, we're thinking of calling it PANDA. What do you reckon? I'm like, that's great. That's all I need. Yeah, anything. Let's go with that.
Rather than the full title, that's a million words.
You're exactly right. Let's just do it. You know, how very convenient.
Yeah.
But it really is a bit of game-changing software, and it's. I mean, and I know there's a fair bit of tech kit out there at the moment, but this is sort of something a little bit different and a step above. And it really has the capacity at sort of concept design stage to strip out up to 40% of embodied carbon.
It's massive,
massive, and not just on sort of 2 or 3 design proposals, but like 1,000 different design options. So we had this bit of kit. I turned up and they sort of said, well, how are we going to market that? And I said, well, software is always a little bit of a challenge because obviously it's, again, you can't take it out for a test drive. You don't really sort of show it to anybody. And I must say that, free trial, that sort of thing. And PANDA isn't, PANDA is not the sexiest bit of user interface, I will say as well. So, it's very much about doing a certain job and doing it really, really well. So we sort of took the view that we would create an animated film to help support the promotion of the software. And I don't know if you want the long story or the short story, but I wrote a script and a storyboard. I got a great friend of mine, Amy Bedford, who works for PALS, which are a sort of communications and brand agency, maybe a competitor of yours, AO. So I'm not sure if you want to edit this bit out.
No, but, absolutely fine.
Okay. So Amy got a panel of voice artists and stock music, and we worked really hard, and we put this. It's about 2 minutes to explain PANDA. And I think one of the things that was interesting for me from a strategic point of view was, yes, we wanted this to be on our website, and we wanted it to be on the Vimeo channel, and for the people to be able to go and see the video and watch how PANDA actually works. But we also wanted it to do a job in the boardroom, so that when our team are going out and they're presenting the practice and they're talking about PANDA, that they could actually play this in the boardroom. And when I was kind of deciding about coming back to tone of voice again, that recognition that even still in this stage of the 21st century, that an overwhelming majority of those sort of boardroom conversations are still middle-aged white men, senior managers, English as a first language, whatever. So I wanted to sort of bring something that would kind of leap out a little bit more from a sort of tone of voice brand perspective. And one of the voice artists that we managed to locate, terrific voice artist from Preston. And so she gave the voiceover for us, and it's this, and I've seen it work. You sort of sit there, and on comes this. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know
a panda from Preston.
A panda from Preston with this lovely accent, and she's very, very good. And I've seen people sort of, and in fact, one person actually afterwards who was from Liverpool, and he was like, "Oh, look, you don't hear, where's she from?" I said, "She's from Preston." You don't hear a lot of non-London accents in these kinds of conversations.
That's a really nice to
have that sort of leap out. So, long story short, PANDA's been really good for us in terms of a tool that sort of gets our foot in the door. It's been really good for promoting the software itself, but also from a more face-to-face, one-to-one, 3-to-3, practice-to-practice presentation style of thing. We can say, hey, we've got this amazing bit of software kit that'll help change the world. Can we come and talk to you? And then that gets our client relationships up and running and further entrenched, which is great.
That's amazing that actually you found a way to harness and use that tool. Because I think that's the thing, is actually to take it in, because you want it to be used ultimately, don't you? And it's like showing it to people and getting them infused and finding an interesting way to show it. I think that's what we're going to do with a lot of these things to get them to get traction as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, it's been a really great thing. We've got some case study projects coming up where we say up to 40%, and we can do that in theory, but we have actually got a couple of examples where we've got sort of 31%, 29% savings in embodied carbon. And PANDA has been so successful, and I don't think I'm talking out of school. I'll have to check this with the partners when I get off this call. But a separate company has been set up, and PANDA is going to be sort of licensed through a PANDA, Price and Myers, Cambridge University, a sort of auxiliary company, to sort of get it, because we want it around the world. It's got so much power to be really, really influential. So we want to get it into the hands of as many people as possible.
Wow, sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So with I guess a brand and a company like Price and Myers, I mean, how do you think that brand has evolved over the years? Because it has, it's almost as old as me. Okay, I'm 1 year older than it.
You're giving yourself away there.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 1 year older than Price and Myers, so obviously a fine vintage. But how has the kind of brand evolved over the years? Or I mean, do you look back? Do they have an archive? I don't know. It's a question.
We don't have an archive, no. I mean, it is a really interesting question, and it's an interesting one for me as well. I'm considerably older than Price and Myers. I'm not just 1 year older. I'm in the decade beforehand, so I'm considerably older. But I think it's even in the last 2 years has been really interesting. It's as you say, it's a 45-year-old practice. It's has a well-established and a very, very good reputation. Sam Price and Robert Myers are no longer involved in the day-to-day. And in recent years, you've also seen a cohort of partners retire, that sort of group of people that Sam and Robert hired in the 80s and 90s. They've sort of retired and moved on as well. So there's a changing of the guard to some extent. And one of the things that was really evident when I arrived 2 years ago was that there was still, there is still the preponderance of middle-aged white men in senior management. And I understand the irony, being a middle-aged white man myself. So I say these things advisedly.
Yeah.
But in the last 2 years, we've made a really concerted effort to better represent the communities that we're working in, the communities that we live in. And we've done things like redact CVs for some roles, limit and remove unconscious bias, redacting names, addresses, even universities and education providers, which I thought was sort of really bold, before those CVs are passed on to the hiring manager. So that's led in the first instance to a broader group of interviewees, obviously, and that has translated into a more diverse intake of new engineers, technicians, and business support people. So what I think you're seeing is a transformation, gradual though it is at the moment, of a brand that was old school, the proverbial safe pair of hands, inventive and really interesting, but more representative of a sort of a bygone British engineering education system. And it's transforming into a more dynamic, more forward-looking and more agile business. And as I say, one that sort of better represents the diversity of the cultures and the diversity of thought of the contemporary profession. We're not there yet, of course.
But you're working towards it.
Go. We're working towards it. But from a brand point of view, it really does feel like a fulcrum point. And we've got, as I say, a practice that can build on an exceptional reputation with an exciting bunch of young engineers led by a group of partners and associates. And I say middle-aged, I mean, there are partners younger than me in the partnership, and the associates are a really sort of dynamic bunch of people in their 30s and 40s. And we sort of draw strength from that increasing diversity. So, I think it is an interesting time. I came on board 2 years ago. The partners gave me a 2-word brief when I began, which I loved. And they said, we're looking for cool and brave.
Cool.
And I remember, yes, exactly, right? Me.
Pardon. No, did you not stand there and just go, pardon me?
No, I kept up a brave face, but all the while I was sitting there thinking, I have no idea how to do cool. What would I know about cool? I've been told by my 7-year-old, I'm not cool. He uses words like, Mum, that was hilarious. And I'm like, what? He goes, well, that means hilarious. That's what me and my friends say. Wasn't Hilaire Belloc a poet or something like that? I mean, that's how uncool I am.
Hilaire. I'm like, what? Hilaire. Is this what 7-year-olds say? So I'm an uncool mother, that's for sure. But yeah,
that's it. So we'll never be as cool. We'll never be as cool as a 7-year-old. That's just, it'll never happen. Never again.
I know. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
So
So
yeah,
cool and brave.
cool and
Wow.
brave, right? That was the 2-word brief that when I sat down with the partners in the first instance to talk about coming over to Price and Myers, and I did. I sat there and thought. I kept a straight face. I'm like, well, in my head, I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know what cool really is, and and yeah, the old thing, if you say you're cool, it's the one thing that assures you certainly
You're
aren't.
not.
But I thought we can be brave. Definitely, I can help with a bit of bravery, and again, it comes back to that tone of voice and that way of writing.
Yeah,
and that
I think
way of
brave is brave. I
Yeah.
can completely understand. Cool, I'm like,
yeah.
Cool does make me question because I'm like, does that mean I go and buy some Converse, or is that like?
Well, what I would say, again, not really knowing what cool is and not being really able to sort of put that into words, but I think engineering as a profession suffers from that lack of coolness, and architecture can be seen as being cooler, right? If we want engineering to be more diverse, and I really do believe that we do because we can draw a lot of strength from that, we've got to get the kids more excited about engineering when they are younger, when they're thinking about the STEM subjects, when they're overcoming gender stereotypes that occur in schools between boys and girls, when they might be from a minority culture in a part of town where they don't aspire to go to university or to become engineers. If we can make engineering cooler, and we do that like on an individual level, on a practice level, and then on an industry level, that's actually one of the ways that we're going to be able to tackle some of these bigger questions. And I think that's everything from talking about the environment and sustainability and the solutions that we need there to, overcoming the preponderance of middle-aged white men in senior management roles. We can't just automatically turn around right now and say, oh, okay, right. So it's all a little bit stale and pale. So let's get more folks from different cultures in. We've got to bring those people through, and the way to do that is to start appealing to them at 7, right? Like the kids at 7 and 8 years of age.
I mean, yeah, exactly. My son loves rail, trains, engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprisingly.
I can remember growing up. As I say, I'm a man now in my mid-50s, and I can remember growing up with Meccano and Lego and kids being encouraged to do that up until a certain point, and then all of a sudden it was only boys playing with Meccano, and girls were off doing what girls in the 60s and 70s did with Barbie dolls and all the rest of it. And if we can make engineering cooler, then we can tap into that group of younger people that are, I think, the future of the profession.
Do you know, Arup did a video called "Engineers Are Cool" probably about 10 years ago.
There you go.
I know.
We'll get there. Did you do it? Was that your video?
No, I can't say it was mine. I think it was done by Ben Richardson, who is amazing. But yeah, it was very cool at the time. And you were like, oh yeah, they are quite cool. Showing all the different diverse areas of engineering and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
it's the absolute key. I think it's central to it. And and I'm not for one moment saying that Price and Myers is necessarily the coolest practice on the block yet. But I think we're getting cooler, and by the time I'm wrapped up, I'd like to think that
you'd be
Price
chilly.
and Myers can be chilly, like proper sexy. Give it 10 years.
Okay, I look forward to seeing that.
Wouldn't it be great if you saw an ad for an engineering practice that was like a Nike shoe or a Mercedes-Benz car or something like that? I think that we could take brand and just explode it in built environment professions.
I think that would be amazing. I think they'd have to have so much foresight to do it. And actually, do you know what? I did work for Ramboll for a while, and one of the interesting things about them was that when they came to the UK as an unknown, when they bought Whitby Bird and stuff.
Yep.
What was interesting was Ramboll is a household name in Denmark. So they're like one of the top 5 companies in the whole country. So that's a very different place to be marketing from. Like literally, they've got a huge HQ by the airport. They're a top 5 company. So they're up there. And you're there going, that's a whole different ballgame to be marketing from when you're, whereas in the UK, you're a relative unknown. So yeah, it's very, very different. And that means how you approach stuff is very different. And I always found that fascinating.
And I think too that, if you're a company like Ramboll and you've got that background, and indeed Arup, I mean, I know Ove was born in Newcastle, but obviously educated in Denmark significantly for a large part of his life. Yeah, I'd be drawing on Scandi Cool like it was going out of fashion. I'd be trying to make it look sexy.
Is this where I go, I'm going to Denmark tomorrow
y-
on holiday, which I am.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Legoland and then Copenhagen. So
Superb.
yes,
Superb.
the way to spend the Jubilee. But but yeah, I agree. How do you make engineering cool? Because actually they are cool. I mean, I love engineering. I think they're amazing what they do. And that's why I love marketing engineers. And they always seem to find me for some reason. So you had a remote studio concept, and how are you marketing that? I think I saw that on your website. Like, you're starting to look at setting up a remote studio. What is that?
Right. So, well, the remote studio is actually an idea that's kind of been burbling around for a while, and the sort of the pandemic made it a logical thing to actually pursue. We have a few clients who deliver us sort of parcels of work, and that can be doing things like structural design for artworks, or designing balcony and cladding systems, modular OSB buildings, even like rear extensions, right? And we thought, with the way that work has changed a little bit over the course of the last couple of years, that there was an opportunity for the right people to be able to undertake that work outside the day-to-day studio environment. So we set up the Price and Myers Remote Studio, and it's a kind of a freelance model, if you like, where structural engineers with other life demands, whether they be study or family or relocation or return to work situations or anything like that, that they can actually take these parcels at their time and speed and place. At the moment, it's only in the UK for tax reasons, so they'd have to be located somewhere in the United Kingdom. And actually sort of knock that work off whenever it sort of fits in with their lives, supported by senior people in our studio in London. So we've had a few people take that up already. It's been a fairly light touch campaign. We just put together a little bit of sort of short video for our socials and our website. Sort of talking about work from us from wherever you like in the UK. Work with us, I should say, any time of day or night, so that it sort of fits around your kids or your study or whatever. And that you'd be with a safe pair of hands. You'd have some guidance and quality sort of check from our client's point of view as well. And we've almost filled all of those places. So if anyone listening to your show today is interested, please do get in touch with me. But yeah, it's just a nice light touch little campaign for an idea that we thought that its time has come, and that we could sort of do something that was win-win-win, win for our client, win for us, and then win for people that wanted to, sort of fit their structural engineering profession in around, their situation.
What I like is, like, you're just trying it. I think some of this stuff, isn't it? You kind of think this is a good idea. Let's just try it out and see. And I think that's the nice thing, isn't it? It's the future. It has to be.
It really is, and it's one of those things where good ideas can come from anywhere, and it comes back to this notion of being brave. Let's have a crack. Let's see how this goes. We think this makes good sense. We think it's, as I say, it's a win-win-win in this particular situation with the remote studio. But even creating the animated film for the PANDA software, there's an investment to be made in that. A lot of places that I've worked with wouldn't have done that. They would have balked at that approach. But there is a spirit of bravery that has been encouraged in me, and that I'm then trying to reiterate and encourage back to the practice, to sort of, let's try some of these things and see what works and what doesn't. And I won't lie, we've tried a couple of things that haven't worked. And we won't be pursuing them again next year, but it's I haven't spent too many thousands of pounds in pursuing things that haven't worked.
Yes, you have.
Oh, maybe a few
champagne
£1,000.
up the gherkin. We know.
We were actually talking about our London studio the other day, and I sort of made the point. I said, that Facebook does have a 24-hour always on Prosecco tap in their kitchen. And I think that could go down pretty well, couldn't it? At Price and Myers London, and they're like, no, I don't.
No,
I don't really think so. Cool maybe, but probably too brave.
And you're like, in Google, they've got a running track on their building, right?
Yeah, but if the running track gets overused, then that's probably not a bad thing. But if the Prosecco tap gets overused, your productivity levels may go down a little bit, I think.
And also, I'm not sure about the whole health and safety and design.
Oh, yeah. You're sitting next to one of your colleagues and it's 10:15 in the morning and they're on their second glass of Prosecco. I'm not convinced of the upside of all of that. But anyway, Facebook, they'll do what they do, right?
So I've got a question for you. This is a careers question, which I'm going to ask.
Yep.
So obviously you've done the rounds, as it were, similar to me, engineering firms and architectural firms. So any advice to people looking to kind of get to the top of these types of firms? What should they be doing? If I'm a budding junior person, which I'm not anymore.
I think even if you're a senior person, no, well, exactly right. But, I think even if you're a senior person, if I've sort of got any advice, it's just to never stop listening and to really, really listen. As I said earlier, I think that great ideas can come from anywhere in a business. And in fact, too often great ideas are not given the time and the currency that they should do because they might be off the cuff from a junior person in a meeting and aren't properly considered. And I think that they should be. So I think if you don't stop listening, good ideas come from anywhere, and also uncomfortable feedback. Sometimes I say to my team that, if you think I've done something wrong or I've missed the mark or I haven't held myself up to the standard that I talk about for all of us, you have every right to give me a smack. You can just, I said this even yesterday. I said I've been around a long time, doing this for a long time with a lot of really talented people, and I've learned a lot of things, and I want to impart that knowledge on you all as well. But it's not a one-way process.
Oh gosh, no, not anymore. It can't be. It
can't be.
There's too much to know now. There's just too much to know, and there's so many changes digitally, how things are done, people just trying new models. There is this whole, it's all changing so fast. You can't do it on your own.
That's so true. And I think the fundamentals of good communications practice remain. They are actually fairly static. The sort of ideas around empathy and compassion and clarity and, development of mutually successful relationships. And I think that's true whether you're doing comms in 1972 or 2042.
I wasn't born.
Yeah. Okay, I was 3, so I wasn't working in comms. But the fundamentals are pretty much the same. AO, stick with me on this. But you're absolutely right. What I know about technology and changes in culture and changes in audiences. Even you think audiences. And then you've got some, younger person in the comms team or an engineer, or come and talk to me about somebody that they met at an event, and you think, oh, okay. So people that maybe don't think like I thought they thought even 3 years ago.
It's changing.
It's changing.
And it's changing fast. And I think that's it. It's changing fast, and that's the thing. It's so hard to keep up. That you need other people's kind of input.
And you've got to listen. You've really not just hear. You've got to actively listen to people. So that's the strength of what I think about how my career has developed. And I'm constantly checking myself just to make sure that I'm still doing the things that I say I should be doing.
Am I still cool?
And as I say, and I give permission to people to pull me up when I need to be, which hopefully isn't too often, but occasionally.
Okay, so on to my final question. So what one tip would you give to a business leader looking, I guess, to thrive in the rest of 2022?
I love him or hate him, I would like to draw on one of the 21st century's great communicators for inspiration to answer this question. No, although I will also agree he is a gifted communicator, but no, not quite as bad as Donald Trump. I'm going to draw on Jeremy Clarkson, if you don't mind.
Oh,
if that's okay.
Controversial.
Yeah,
I
know. Well, I'm going to tell you why, because he's a gifted communicator and a very hardworking communicator. And as I certainly, don't agree with everything that he says, and I think he can be a bit of a twat. But he had a couple of catchphrases on Top Gear that I'm actually quite fond of, bringing into my work at the moment. And the first of those is, "What could possibly go wrong?" And when it comes to growing your business and when it comes to expanding your networks and moving into new markets, or the word pivot was all the rage about 2 years ago. I don't know how much pivoting people actually did. But ask yourself what could possibly go wrong. Assess your risks, prioritize them in the order the likely damage if something does go wrong, and then take some of them. Risks are a great catalyst for growth. And I think as we stand here in we're on the doorstep of June 2022, I don't know. Well, what I do know is there's a recession coming. Now, I don't know when it's going to come, but there's always a recession coming. The pandemic may have masked it to some degree already. I don't know, or it might be literally around the corner. But risks are always a great catalyst for growth. And when that inevitable recession does arrive, it can set you up actually for the recovery that comes after it. And I know this fits in with the title of your podcast as well. And then the other thing I would say is that Jeremy Clarkson also says, "How hard could it be?" And I've sort of found over the course, right? No, if anyone out there who's listening to this and watches Top Gear, the old Top Gear, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because this is Clarkson all the time.
Yes.
But, what could possibly go wrong? How hard could it be? And
I found almost do the accent.
Doncaster posh. No, definitely not. But I think over the course of my career, what has sometimes appeared to be really difficult or challenging, or sometimes even impossible, is often not as hard as it looks or as hard as it seems. And sometimes it is actually, you do it and it is really hard, and it is harder than it looks.
And you're going, why did I do this?
Yeah, why did I do this? But, get started and adapt.
Yeah.
I think, we've got, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours on the weekend, Dominique Steindl, and she was saying about how, when a business challenge confronts her, that she adapts, thinks around that, and then is absolutely amazed at what serendipity can offer when she keeps on thinking and keeps on working. And I think that's absolutely true. So, I'd say, assess your risks and take some, and then, jump in. I think that there is a lot of upside to, what we're confronting at the moment. And, and one of the things that always comes after a recession is a recovery, and you want to be really well placed for that.
On that lovely note, thank you so much for being my guest, Chris.
That has been my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks so much for listening to the latest episode of Marketing in Times of Recovery, and I'm your host, Iowa Bass. If you want to find out more about the bi-weekly show, do check out the show notes, which will give you more information about who the guests are and all the things we've covered. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on an episode. Until next time, bye.